Today, we're looking at a purple ink by Sailor, Magic Purple. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, down below in the description, there's timestamps of all the parts of the video, and if you are in a hurry, you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you if you check out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Tasha Spectrum with a music nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take my notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I do test other papers, but those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now, the extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some nice peppering of shading throughout. You see a bunch of darker letters, and you see a few lighter letters. Like if you look at over, it starts very light, it does go to very dark, but it's a peppering of shading. 9 seconds to dry. Now, medium is just a hair lighter, darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. We're really not seeing the shading here. 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding. Light Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread. It does have some haloing that goes on around, tiny little outlines that are occurring. No sheen. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shading, 19 seconds to dry. It's like, well, yeah, it's about the same tone. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the medium, the 1.1, with no feather spread. It does have some haloing. Like on the K of quick, there's a little bit of haloing. On the ZY of lazy, there's a little bit of haloing. No sheen, no shade, 26 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading, 11 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine in the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It has that peppering of shading throughout. You can see spots, like the left side of the Q in quick, or the right side of the K in quick. Both are a little bit darker than what's around it. The R in over, just a little bit darker. 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both do show some color variation, far left to far right, although we only really get it in the medium. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we do see that this is immediately trying to get into the filter paper by the line that's outlining where I put the line down above and below it. Now the rest of that purple pushes its way up, and we see this isn't a mix of colors. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And in 10 minutes, it is completely bonded with the filter paper and is not budging. But we've seen with these Sailor inks, the Storia line, they're very permanent. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would be perfectly safe using this in a note-taking situation. It's got no issues dealing with having the highlighter go over it after. Water has very little effect on the ink. It's really barely moving any. You have to look real close to see what it has managed to move. Pen Flush is doing just a little bit more than water, but it's really not doing it. The 1/3 bleach solution is having very little effect also. But just to be clear, I've not had to use anything more than water to get this out of my pen. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I'll link that somewhere here. And for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Put the data onto a bell curve or standard deviation for it to be easily understood. Sailor's Magic Purple has a viscosity of 2.44, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor's Magic Purple has an average dry time of 16 seconds, making its dry time also normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor's Magic Purple, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted to go with a nice magenta, and I chose Noodler's Matahari's Cordial. The second writing sample is done on Life, Levenger, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life paper. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no real shading. Now the extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. There are little peppered spots of shading. The K in quick, the H in the X in fox. There's little spots of it where it does come out just a little bit. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is slightly darker than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and that very nice peppering of shading throughout, where we really do get to see some of what's going on. 15 seconds to dry. Now the Scrubby for both does show some color variation, and we do get little bits of color variation in the writing. Levenger. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 7 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than the extra fine, quite a bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 11 seconds to dry. The Scrubby for both does show a tiny bit of color variation in the extra fine, none in the medium, but we didn't get any in the extra fine writing. Last up is Franklin Christoph paper. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. Medium is by far the darkest on the page, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby of both show no color variation, and we're not getting any color variation, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Sailor's Magic Purple? It's a little pale on the page, and it doesn't offer a lot of shading. Now, it is a very nice tone, but it's a little too pale for me. Otherwise, if you like lighter purples, this is going to be perfect. So what nib and pen is going to give the best writing experience? A wet, broad pen will put enough ink down, and when you're going back over, it will even offer up the opportunity for some shading while making it, in general, a little bit darker, so a little bit nicer, and that's where my preferences lie here. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.